Hi and welcome to Run Tall with Tim. I'm Tim and today I've got a great shoe comparison for you. It's two daily trainers by Nike. Both fall within their React family of shoes. It's the Miler version 2 versus the Infinity Run 2. Now before I get into it too far, I always like to demonstrate what it looks like to run in the shoes I'm about to review for you. So let's take a minute and do that. But then when we come back together, I'm going to take a real close look at the Miler 2 and the Infinity Run 2 to try to answer the question, which shoe is right for you? Now this video is not intended to be a full review of either shoe, but if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description below that'll take you to reviews that I've completed for each shoe previously. Also, if you're new to the channel, I post running shoe reviews and comparisons on both Wednesday and Saturday mornings, and that's at 5 a.m. Standard Eastern Time here in the US. I also like to post bonus videos, but I never know what day of the week that's going to be or even what time of day. So if you enjoy running shoe reviews and other videos related to running, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time that I upload new content. Now these are considered both to be neutral daily training running shoes. However, they each have a smidge of stability built into them, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. So I'm going to begin with the cost of the shoes. Now, the Infinity Run Flyknit 2s cost $160 US, while the Miler version 2 comes in at $130 US. There's a difference in weight as well. Now, with the Infinity Run Flyknit 2s, they come in at 9.7 ounces for men's size 9 on my scales, while the Miler 2s are quite a bit heavier. They come in at 10.7 ounces, and again, that's a men's size 9 on my scales. Now, the style of these uppers are about as different, I think, as you can possibly get. You've got the Flyknit on the Infinity Run, which to me feels much more like a racing shoe would feel underfoot. Compare that to the Miler 2, and this to me feels a bit more like a trail shoe would. This upper is really beefy. It's got lots of plastic overlays around the cage system and up around in the toe box. So about as different, I think, as you can possibly get in terms of the fit and feel of the upper on both of these. Now, in talking about the fit of these, with the Miler 2, there is a ton more room up in the toe box. So if you want to splay your toes when you're out running, or you just have a wider foot, I think that the Miler 2 is going to be much more comfortable than it is in the Infinity Run 2. Now this has a more traditional, what I would call Nike fit. It's much more narrow up in the toe box especially. And let me just show you something. So what I did is I pulled the insoles out of both of these shoes to try to give you an idea, because I think you can see the shape of the toe box a little better if we look at how the insoles were cut to fit. So this obviously is the Infinity Run, and you can see how much more narrow it is up in that toe box than it is in the Miler 2. So, and then even more telling is if I place one on top of the other here, and I'm going to try to show you just how much difference there is. Now, hopefully you'll be able to see that, but you can tell that there's a bunch more material there on the Miler 2 than there is in the Infinity Run Flyknit 2 version of the shoe. So looking at the Flyknit, as we pan around to the side of the shoe here, you can see that, they have perforations up in that fly material, but they do have somewhat of a plastic kind of overlay, so it is real plasticky feeling to it, but they have the perforations in some strategic areas. So up in the toe box here, and then along the midfoot section of the shoe up to the forefoot. And then they have their Nike plastic overlay there as their symbol or their logo coming across to the back of the shoe. Now that's very similar to what they have going on with the Myler 2, although this is a double jacquard mesh material. The styling of the mesh up in the toe box area is the same. So they have, in strategic areas, they have some mesh style material up in the toe box, and just like the Infinity, they have it just in the midfoot to forefoot section of the shoe with their Nike swoosh coming around to the side of the shoe all the way to the back. So let's talk about the cage system or the lacing system on each of these, because they are vastly different. With the Myler 2, it's a much more, traditional style lacing system that they have up here. They have a lot of plastic overlays. As I mentioned right off the bat, this reminds me a lot of a trail shoe with just how durable and how much plastic that they have in this shoe around, especially around the laces. Look at that. You're not going to be able to pull those laces through. They're going to be, there is a lot of durability there. You're never going to have to worry about your laces ripping out with these shoes. I am sure about that. And also they did include that extra eyelet up there for, if you want to run with a runner's knot. I felt like I could get very easily a nice, secure, lockdown feeling across my midfoot of the shoe. It just feels like, though, there's a lot of material there. It's kind of heavy that way to me. It feels heavy. Now, that's in contrast, in direct contrast, with what they got going on with the Infinity Run shoe. This is their Flywire system. I really like that. I've always enjoyed that feeling. It's really customizable, I think. It just fits your foot shape as you cinch up those laces, because those fly wires, they run all the way down and connect to the midsole of your shoe. And I just feel like I'm more banded in across that midfoot. So you can get really dialed in on these shoes as well, more so, I think, than with the Myler 2, but they both have a snugged lockdown feeling across that midfoot. One of the biggest differences, however, is with this shoe, it has a hourglass shape to it. Let's just look at that landing platform up on that forefoot, and then you got a nice big landing platform back here. Now that's great for stability, right? So it gives you a nice stable platform to land on, but then it's awfully thin in that medial, along the arch side or the midsection of the shoe. So you got this big pronounced hourglass shape to it. Well, what happens then is the way that upper material is attached to that midsole, you're really kind of wrapping around your foot, so you feel a lot like a burrito your foot does. And I think that's the way I described it the first time I reviewed the Infinity Run 2. Now contrast that with this shoe, still a more wide platform than I think what Nike typically puts out, and in the heel area does have that hourglass shape, just not as pronounced. It's not nearly as thin in the midsection of the shoe, so it's a less of a burrito feeling. You do feel snugged in and secure. I felt terrific that way, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy the fit and feel of both of these uppers. It's just they're quite a bit different in how they go about it. You got the burrito feeling in the Infinity Flyknit 2, and I think this is a more traditional daily trainer fit for me. Also, with the Infinity, they too included that extra eyelet up here in case you want to run with the runner's knot. As long as we're looking at that, let's take a look at the tongue. Now, this is what I would say a 3/4 bootie construction, because it is a bootie right up until the end of the tongue here. And when I first reviewed this, I was concerned about the stitching of that last piece of the tongue maybe coming loose. I have not had that issue, but to be fair, since I noticed that, I've been pretty careful about putting these shoes on and really not pulling or tugging too hard on the end of that tongue so that I could avoid maybe having it come off in my hands. Now, it is well padded. I wouldn't say that it's overly done, but there's plenty of padding there. And even with those fly wires, I have not noticed them digging into the top of my foot at all. It's been really comfortable. Now, with the Myler version 2, they also have a fully gusseted tongue, so it gives you that booty feeling to it because it is a full gusset. The tongue itself isn't as padded, or at least it's not a traditional padding. It has more of a neoprene type feeling to the tongue, but there is padding there. and I have found it to be comfortable. And so far, I've not noticed, feeling the laces across the top of my foot when I've been running. So it's been comfortable that way. And it has these, a couple of bands up here. So it has a traditional eyelets and then a couple of the bands that help get you locked in and secure across that midfoot. So overall, I would say that the tongue works well on each of them to help feel comfortable when you're out running. Looking at the padding now around the heel collar and tab of each of them, they're pretty darned equivalent. There isn't a whole lot of difference here. They're both well padded. So let's take a look at the Infinity Flyknit 2. And here you can see there's lots of padding there. And it has a traditional heel counter. So, it doesn't have a heel flare. Neither shoe does. They both have a pull tab to help you get your shoes on. But again, they're very equivalent, very comfortable, not necessarily overly done. It is a pillow style, what I call pillow style padding. Most of the padding then resides up around toward the top of the heel collar and around the heel tab of the shoe. And I found it to be comfortable. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be quite so padded in each of them, especially on the kind of that outside pillow style, but hey, it works. They're both comfortable and they're both daily trainers. So we're not necessarily going for the lightest, fastest shoe out on the market, but we want something in a daily trainer that's going to be comfortable for lots of miles. And I think they have accomplished that goal with each of them with the padding around the heel collar and tab. Looking at the heel counter, now this is where some of those stability features are built in. As I squeeze the heel together on the Infinity Flyknit 2, you can see there's a lot of structure there. Or if I try to push and go forward with that heel counter, there's a lot of structure there. They also have a plastic heel clip that comes all the way around well into the midfoot, almost forefoot of the shoe, and it wraps around the entire shoe from the medial side to the lateral side. And if we look at the Miler 2, it has similar features that way. I would say the structure in the heel is very similar, maybe just a tad bit less in the Miler 2 as I pinch it together. But as I go forward, it feels pretty much the equivalent going this direction. And then it too also has a plastic heel clip for a little extra stability in that heel area, but it doesn't go nearly up as far. It really ends at about the start of the midsection of the shoe or the midfoot, but it does wrap all the way around from the medial side to the lateral side of the shoe. Again, creating a nice heel pocket and a little extra stability in your heel area should you overpronate. Now, again, these are both neutral daily trainers, but they have that smidge amount of stability in them. So if you are a person who could benefit from a little bit of stability, then you can find that in each of these. Now let's talk about the midsole. I'm going to begin with the Infinity Flyknit 2. Now, both of these shoes have React foam from the heel to the toe. The Infinity Flyknit 2 has a little bit more. It has 33 millimeter stack height in the heel and 24 millimeters in the forefoot for that 9 millimeter offset from the heel to the toe. The biggest difference for me, however, wasn't the stack height so much as the feeling underfoot. There seems to be more motion control built in with the Infinity Flyknit 2. It wants to correct your foot strike if you overpronate just a little bit. So when I'm rolling through, there seems to be more support on that medial side, so I don't have that inward roll of my heel, especially if you're transitioning from your heel to the toe. I just felt like there was more going on in the heel to keep you from rolling inwards on toward that medial side. Whereas with the Miler 2, it was more of just a direct roll. I didn't feel like it was trying to control or slow my pronation as much in that heel area especially. Now both shoes feature a rocker geometry, so that just means that they've got that curvature from the heel to the toe, and that's so that you have a nice transition from heel to toe throughout your gait cycle. They're pretty equivalent that way in terms of the rocker that they have on that midsole material. So that felt good in each of them. Both felt good when you're up in the forefoot. Surprisingly though, with the Miler version 2, I felt like even though it has a little bit less foam underfoot, so it has 30.6 millimeters in the heel and 21.3 millimeters in the forefoot for that 9.3 millimeter offset from the heel to the toe, I felt like they were as cushioned, if not more so, to land on, especially when I was landing in my mid to forefoot of the shoe. Now, typically I am a mid to forefoot foot striker, And I would say that, they're either really equivalent or they might even be just a tad bit softer or more cushioned to land on. Now, I would not have guessed that just based on the stack height. You would think that more React foam underfoot would give you a much softer ride because there's about 2.5 millimeters more foam underfoot with the Infinity Flyknit 2, but I did not feel like it was a softer or more cushioned ride. So let's flip these shoes over and we'll take a look at the outsoles just to compare those two. And with the Infinity Flyknit 2, it has blown rubber from the heel to the toe. They have a more, I guess, groove type of pattern on that outsole material. So it's a little less traditional that way. But if we look at the Mylar 2, now I would say that the Mylar 2s are a very traditional outsole pattern on them. They've got kind of the traditional lugs. They have blown rubber in all of the high abrasion areas around the heel and up in the forefoot. And also, as we have it flipped over, we can see that it has this groove there as well. And I always like that because I feel like it gives you just a little bit of a trampoline effect. So as you come down and then it kind of pops you forward. It's always a comfortable feeling to me when they put that in or include that into the geometry of the shoe. Both I felt like transitioned well from the heel to the toe. I just felt like with the Mylar version 2, with a little bit less React foam, it felt just as soft, if not softer, to run in. So if you're looking for a shoe that has a more race fit to the upper, a little bit more narrow up in the toe box, real snug, secure fit across the midsection of the shoe with a wider landing platform and a little extra stability built in for motion control, then the Infinity Flyknit 2 might be right for you. And it's a little bit lighter. Or if you're looking for a shoe that has a little bit more room up in the toe box so you can splay your toe, still has a lockdown feeling across the midfoot, but has a more beefy upper, one that's going to last a really long time with a traditional outsole material. Also has a smidge of stability, just not as much as the Infinity Flyknit 2 does. Then I think that the Mylar version 2 might be the right shoe for you. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed making it for you. Thanks for making it to the end. And as always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.